Welcome in, guys. Today we read 3 stories. Turn down the lights, get comfy, and let's get into it. Okay, ready. Once upon a time, there was a young eel deep in the coral reef. He lived a happy life and never thought of anything but feasting on the tasty fish and shrimp that lived in the bottom of the ocean with him, swimming and feeling the push of the tide as it drew him in and out, and sleeping in his comfortable hidey hole. It was a comfortable life, and he was content. Until one day, as he was swimming about, a wise old shark swam by. "Little eel," said the shark, "are you not lonely? Do you not often wish for companionship?" The little eel thought about it. "No, sir," he said. "I am quite content swimming around and eating delicious shrimp and living in my hidey hole." "Suit yourself," said the old shark, but he swam away. But as he swam away, he added, "Might as well forget I asked." Now, if that shark had said something like, "Mark my words," or if the shark had emphasized the importance of it, then the young eel would have done just that. But since the shark had made nothing of it, and in fact had told the eel to forget it, quite naturally the eel could think of nothing else for days. And because he could think of nothing else, he became very unhappy with his life indeed. He became bitter about his shrimp and fish dinners, and uncomfortable with his hidey hole. And when he went out to swim with the tide, surrounded by the population of the reef, it only made him feel lonelier. "Oh, stuff all these things," he said. "I was never unhappy about it, but now I am unhappy without a companion. I must find one." And so the young eel swam off in search of a companion. Within minutes, he found another eel. "Hello, Miss Eel," he said to her. "Would you like to be my companion?" "Oh, no," she said. "I have a companion already, and all these little fry to take care of. But thank you for the offer." And he swam away disappointed, but he did not expect to be so lucky on the first try. He came up to another eel a couple hours later. "Hello, Miss Eel," he said to her. "I would like a companion." "You would you?" said she. "Well, good luck on your search." "Would you like to be my companion?" he asked. "I'm not interested in a companion at this time." And he swam away, quite perturbed. A couple of days later, he came upon another eel. "My dearest Miss Eel," he said to her, "isn't it a lovely day for companionship? Would you like to join me?" "No," she said. "Why not?" asked he. "Because," she said, "in all honesty, you seem a bit too eager for companionship to me, and I wonder what it is you are looking for that you haven't found." "I am looking for a companion," he said. "I was happy in my hole, eating shrimp and fish and swimming with the tide. But then I realized that I did not have a companion, and that I must have a companion to be happy." "But my dear Mr. Eel," she replied, "if you are not satisfied without a companion, what makes you think you will find something with one? Companionship is as much about giving as it is about taking. Are you ready to give? I can tell you are not. You are thinking only of what you want. Now do go, I have a busy day of swimming and need my rest." And the young eel was more frustrated than ever and darted back to his hidey hole, bitter and upset. He had been there a week, pouting and grouchy, before the shark swam by again. "What's this?" he asked the little eel. "What happened to my happy young eel? I think I have not seen an eel so miserable as this in all my years. Do you no longer enjoy your shrimp and fish and your swimming with the tide and your cozy hidey hole?" "No," the young eel nearly shouted. "I do not have a companion to share this with me, and I must have one to be happy," he said. "Oh dear," said the shark. "You do now. You didn't before." "Well, yes," said the eel. "I was quite content before, but then the idea of having a companion, well, it seems so nice. Someone I can snuggle with in my cozy hidey hole. I can catch a big fish or shrimp and split it with her. We can swim in the ocean together. Those sound quite nice, but they seem quite nice even without a companion, no?" "Well, yes, but now that I think of how it might feel to do it with someone, perhaps that is the case. Perhaps there is no more enjoyment to be had in these things," said the shark, and he swam away. Now, if that shark had pointed out to the eel that the things he had enjoyed were still just as fun as they had been before, the eel never would have thought another thing of it. But because the shark said that there was no more enjoyment to be had, the young eel began to think, "You know, I do still like my hidey hole. It is a very nice hidey hole by itself, and I enjoy swimming in the water just as much as I always did. And the little fish I ate yesterday was particularly good. I would enjoy them just as much as I did before if I don't have a companion. Why would I miss the joy without them? And so the little eel stopped worrying about having a companion and began to enjoy his life once again. He still had that longing in his heart, but he was no longer a miserable young eel. He was happy again. 1 month later, the water was warming up as spring began to arrive. And he was just the happiest little eel swimming about when someone came up to him. "Pardon me," she said. "I couldn't help but notice how much you were enjoying the water here." "Dance with me," said the little eel. "It's fun, but it's even more fun if we do it together." And she did, and the two eels spun and coiled and danced, and all the fish and life around the reef were amazed at the beauty of their dance. Just then, the eel spotted a large tiger shrimp. "Over there," he said to the other eel. "Those taste wonderful, but they are too large for one little eel to eat. Would you like to split one with me?" "Oh, I don't know," she replied. "You don't have to if you don't want to. Here, I'll catch some for myself and you may try it if you like." And he shot forward and snapped it and bit the tiger shrimp clean in two. He nudged the tastiest part, the head, to the female eel, and she ate it. Together they ate the delicious shrimp. "You know," she said, "I've had them before, but for some reason, like this, it tastes better." "Yes," the little eel yawned. I think you're right." And the little eel was very tired. "I must retire to my cozy hidey hole. It is truly a nice hidey hole, great for sleep. I am tired." "Oh, I do love a good hidey hole," she said. Would you like to share mine with me?" "I do believe I would." And so the young eel snuggled up in his hidey hole with his new companion, and they went to sleep. This has a dad joke ending. The wise old shark watched all of this from afar, while an even older lobster ambled up to him. "You knew that little eel would finally find love all along said the lobster. "Of course," said the shark. "That's amore." That was really nice, though. It had, there was a purpose to it. It had, what's the word? Lessons. The lessons in it were really, really good. You gotta be happy with yourself. Okay, we're going with nocturnal riddles. I'm gonna make you guys think, maybe. Nocturnal riddles. In the hush of the night, under the shimmering moonlight, a renowned puzzle solver named Professor Edmund Sinclair received an intriguing invitation. It was an ornate envelope with an embossed wax seal, bearing an emblem that resembled a labyrinth puzzle. The invitation was for an inclusive gathering at the Blackthorn Mansion, known for hosting secretive nocturnal events. With curiosity piqued and a sense of adventure in his heart, Professor Sinclair arrived at the mansion as the clock struck midnight. The mansion loomed ominously, its shadowy facade adorned with intricate engravings and statues shrouded in mystery. As he entered the grand foyer, a butler clad in black greeted him and escorted him to the main chamber, where a group of guests had already gathered. The chamber was dimly lit, and the chandelier above cast an eerie glow. Around him, the other guests were equally distinguished in their fields. Mathematicians, cryptographers, and puzzle enthusiasts. Each of them had received an invitation just as cryptic as his own. At the stroke of midnight, a tall and figure named Lady Isadora Blackthorn appeared, dressed in an elaborate gown adorned with moonlit silver threads. She welcomed the guests with an air of mystery, revealing the purpose of the gathering. They were to partake in a series of complex puzzles, riddles, and enigmas, devised to test their intellect and unravel secrets hidden within the mansion's ancient walls. The first challenge began with a riddle etched into a centuries-old tapestry hanging on the wall. Professor Sinclair's heart quickened with excitement as he read the words. "I stand tall when the sun sleeps, and I disappear when the dawn weeps. What am I?" As the participants pondered the riddle, Professor Sinclair's keen mind raced. It was an hourglass, he surmised, a symbol of time. He quickly shared his answer, and Lady Isadora nodded in approval. The grand clock in the room chimed, signaling their success. The puzzles continued, each one more intricate than the last. Hidden compartments, cryptic codes, and optical illusions confounded the guests. They were all drawn into the enigma of Blackthorn Mansion, eager to prove their mettle. But as the night deepened, a sense of unease settled over the group. Whispers of a dark agenda permeated the air, and sinister secrets began to unfurl. Professor Sinclair's sharp intuition sensed that the mansion held more than mere riddles. it concealed a nefarious plot. He discreetly gathered clues, forming a clandestine alliance with another guest, Dr. Alara Montague, an expert in ancient languages. Together, they decoded cryptic messages hidden in the mansion's artworks, revealing a hidden society with dark intentions. As the final hours of the night approached, Lady Isadora revealed the ultimate challenge, a puzzle so intricate it would determine their fate. The mansion's grand clock, a colossal mechanical marvel, displayed a countdown timer. To escape the mansion's clutches, Lady Isadora declared, "You must solve this puzzle before dawn, or you shall remain here forever." Professor Sinclair, Dr. Montague, and the remaining guests huddled around the clock. The puzzle was a labyrinth of gears, cogs, and symbols, each one a piece of the grand design. They worked tirelessly, their minds racing against the relentless march of time. As dawn's first light began to creep through the mansion's windows, the puzzle's final piece clicked into place, and the grand clock chimed in triumph. The mansion trembled, revealing hidden passages and escape routes. Professor Sinclair and Dr. Montague emerged into the crisp morning air, free from the clutches of Blackthorn Mansion. They watched as the mansion crumbled into ruins, its secrets buried forever. As they walked away, the sun's warmth on their faces, Professor Sinclair couldn't help but smile at the incredible adventure he had experienced. The nocturnal riddles had tested his intellect, his courage, and his determination. And now, as the world awakened to a new day, he felt a profound sense of relaxation and release from the stress of the night's challenges. With a newfound appreciation for the mysteries of the world and a sense of peace in his heart, Professor Edmund Sinclair bid farewell to Blackthorn Mansion and the enigma it presented. He knew that, in the quiet of the night, he would always cherish the memory of that fateful nocturnal adventure. Okay, the train conductor. Alberto arrived at Levenrum Station sometime after the rain had begun. His mother had dropped him off on the platform in front of the emerald green steam engine with the number 19 emblazoned on the side. He still bore the pink outline of his mother's lips on his forehead and touched it affectionately. Alberto set down his trunk, causing the contents within to rattle and clack. He glanced down at the ticket in his hand, turning it over to reveal a drawing of a large, menacing octopus with 8 winding tentacles, placing a gold crown on its large purple head. A little girl with cinnamon-colored hair and a round pumpkin-shaped head toddled past him, nearly knocking the ticket out of his hand. She was carrying a pink suitcase with peeling stickers on it. The latch of the suitcase was haphazardly locked, and when she got to the entrance of the train, an assortment of snacks, from half-eaten fruit pouches to apple slices and whole wheat crackers, spilled out onto the platform. A woman wearing a fine pressed uniform that matched the color of the train stepped down from the main coach and onto the platform. She beamed at the little girl and helped scoop up the debris into her suitcase. "Ticket, please," she sang as she held out her hand. The little girl handed the woman the ticket and watched with curiosity as the woman punched a hole in it with a silver hole puncher. The train conductor handed back the ticket and guided the little girl inside before retrieving a gold pocket watch from the breast pocket of her blazer and checked the time. 2 minutes, she bellowed. The train conductor looked around at the bustling crowd on the platform before she noticed Alberto. She gave him a knowing wink as she snapped her pocket watch closed and slipped it back into her blazer. "Are you ready, sir?" Alberto smiled. "Train conductor?" She flashed him a pink-lipped smile. "Ticket, please." Alberto handed the train conductor a ticket and was soon ushered into the passenger car along with a couple of stragglers. The passenger car was filling up quickly, but Alberto managed to spot an open seat beside the little round-faced girl from before. She was occupying herself with the business of sucking her thumb, and when she caught sight of Alberto, she waved. The other passengers in their cotton polyester and velvet furs were not inviting, staring off in indiscriminate directions, and so he decided that the little girl would perhaps be a better companion than, say, the old cow sitting with her head pressed against the window. When he sat beside the little girl, he tucked his trunk beneath his seat and waited with his hands on his lap. The train conductor appeared at the front of the passenger car and beamed. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls," she projected down the car, "we welcome you to Fast Track Fraser's first-class railway. My name is Miss Anne Fraser, and I will be your train conductor on this 30-mile trek to the ever-delightful Siesta Village. Please listen carefully as our rules have slightly changed since your last visit. Emergency exits are located here, 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 and here," she said, rapidly pointing in several different directions. "Afternoon tea is served promptly at 12 p.m. The soup of the day is chicken soup with a side of goldfish crackers." "Cat goes peas!" exclaimed the little girl sitting beside Alberto. Mrs. Fraser smiled at the little girl and gave her a slight nod, acknowledging her request. The little girl sat back and clapped delightedly at the prospect of crackers and licked her lips for added effect. Bathrooms are located in the back, continued Mrs. Fraser. And please remember to keep your hands, feet, arms, and legs, and anything else you wish not to lose inside the train at all times. And lastly, should we find ourselves in danger, please place your hands over your cheeks like so, she said, slapping her hands over her cheeks. Open your mouth real wide in an O, raise your eyebrows to your hairline, and scream at the top of your lungs, "Ah!" she belted at the top of her lungs. Alberto and the little girl both threw their hands over their cheeks and imitated Mrs. Fraser's high-pitched shriek, holding onto the deafening pitch until a blonde gentleman wearing a mechanic's uniform poked his head into the car and shook his head. Too loud, you guys. Mrs. Fraser tossed the blonde gentleman a look that was a mixture of affection and a dash of remorse and kissed him on the cheek apologetically. The blonde gentleman shook his head but retreated out of the passenger car with a pink stain on his cheek, blushing. A hue the color of cotton candy began to creep up the cheeks of Mrs. Fraser too, as she smoothed out her pencil skirt and the tips of her lips twitched upward into a smile. Alberto stuck out his bottom lip and made a face, which she noticed and laughed before continuing bashfully. Ahem, she cleared her throat. Before we take off, there is one last thing. Be mindful of the giant octopi. They have an affinity for snacks, so please do not feed them. She shot Alberto and the little girl a look, which prompted them to giggle. Do we understand? Alberto and the little girl nodded. More so Alberto. The little girl merely moved her head forward once to imitate him. She had become fascinated with a loose string sticking out of the wall of the train beside the window. Don't touch, Alberto advised. You can rip the train. Suddenly a loud whistle bellowed and the train lurched forward, causing Alberto and the rest of the passengers to be flung backward ever so slightly. The train began to chug along the track, and sometimes neigh. Somehow the trains on Fast Track Fraser's first-class railways were in the habit of imitating the oddest sounds as they rumbled down the tracks. The little girl was singing Old MacDonald as she tried to remove her socks, having already accomplished the task of removing her shoes. Beto, waved the little girl beside him. Beto kiss? No, Mila. We have to pretend we don't know each other, Alberto protested. The little girl stretched out her leg across the street and took a swing at Alberto with her tiny bare foot. Beto? Shh, Mila. You know what's coming next. Doggy? No. Mommy! Mrs. Fraser popped back into the passenger car, looking almost alarmed. Attention, please. It appears that we will be passing through a particularly narrow tunnel. At this time, I ask that you huddle as close together as possible as we attempt to go through it without crushing any of the snacks. Watch our heads. Forgetting their earlier squabble, Alberto threw his arm over Mila and squeezed her tightly against him. The two children grinned in anticipation. Here we go. Ready? Ready now? Squeeze, cried the train conductor. The roof and walls of the train car began to groan and shake. Light disappeared as they entered the tunnel. Suddenly there was a loud shudder as their surroundings began to inch closer towards them, pressing the other passengers into a tangle of cotton and polyester limbs. Mila giggled and climbed onto Alberto's lap as the train's walls and roof crowded onto them, nearly squishing them like a can of sardines. The train conductor was nowhere to be found, but Alberto could hear her soft humming as the train trembled and swayed through the tunnel. At last, the roof and walls began to slowly retreat, and Mila's legs danced as the train slowly readjusted itself to as it was. Light spilled into the train once more, and a couple of the other passengers lay on the floor, or sprawled over or across their seats. Mrs. Fraser appeared smiling, pushing in front of her a tea trolley with the most delightful menagerie of treats a 4- and 2-year-old could ever ask for. Sandwiches of peanut butter and jelly cut into triangles with the crust cut off or meticulously arranged on a tray, adorned with grapes and strawberries. Mmm, said the children as they rubbed their bellies in unison. The train conductor handed Mila a snack-sized bag of goldfish crackers and winked as she pulled up next to them. A special order of hot chocolate for our 2 guests of honor, she said, handing them each a container filled with warm cocoa. Alberto and Mila sipped on their hot chocolate, smiling at each other as they felt the warm and comforting liquid trail down into their bellies. Mila was halfway through her hot chocolate when something sinister flashed against her face. She held up the bag of goldfish crackers and looked between Alberto and the train conductor before glancing out the window. They were passing by a large lake now, that glistening in the sunlight as if winking at them from outside. It suddenly dawned on Alberto what mischief Mila was up to. "Don't do it, Mila!" But it was too late. No sooner had the words left from his mouth when 8 large tentacles suddenly emerged from the depths of the sea outside. They rose slowly upwards at first and continued to rise until it seemed as if they were reaching for the blazing yellow ball in the sky. There was a pause as the tentacles remained swaying skyward, and the children waited anxiously for what would happen next. All of a sudden, all 8 tentacles shot forward towards the train. Alberto and Mila threw their hands over their cheeks and began to scream just as Mrs. Fraser had instructed. The tentacles burst through the windows, spraying the train car with tiny pieces of glass. Immediately, a plush crocodile with a missing eye was dragged out of the train and pulled into the bottom of the sea with hardly a trace of him left, save for the ripples of the lake marking the spot of his entry. Passengers scrambled about the train car and screamed wildly like frightened sheep. One of the passengers was in fact a lamb with a bell around its neck. It was nearly snatched up, but Mila's tiny hand shot out and managed to cling tightly to it. "Peas, Beto, peas," she beseeched him. Alberto was moved to sympathy for her plight and jumped to the floor and crawled towards his trunk, careful to avoid the tentacles of the octopus who was eagerly searching for more victims to join the other victims in the murky waters outside. He reached under the seat and pulled out the trunk, and there inside was a variety of toy cars, trains, and a plastic hammer. He momentarily got distracted with the trains and began to roll them along the floor, making train noises as he played. Mrs. Fraser popped her head inside the cabin as the tentacle swung over her head, knocking the hat off her head. "Aren't you going to help save Mila's lamb?" Alberta snapped back at attention and set the train aside and reached for the hammer. He held it up to Mrs. Fraser and she nodded in approval. When she disappeared, a massive tentacle whipped forward and seized him by the scruff of his shirt. Alberta had fought manic octopi many a times, and the destruction of this one would be just as simple as the others. He swung the hammer down on the tentacle and it released him. Mila was pointing at the plush lamb as it was slowly, almost teasingly dragged out of the window. Alberto swung the hammer over his head and brought it down upon the tentacle. The octopus let out a yelp and released the lamb. The lamb arose and ran to Mila, who caught it in her arms and embraced it. 5 minutes, love," a man's voice called. It was the man in the mechanic's uniform. "No, Daddy, no bed." Mrs. Fraser appeared at the front of the passenger car, rubbing her hands. "I'm afraid Daddy's right, sweetie. I've let you stay up long enough." "Train conductor, Mommy?" "Yes, Beto." Alberto yawned and did not move from his spot on the train. Mila, with the lamb pressed against her chest, was dozing off by his side, tugging at the loose string from earlier. "Come along, Mila. Off we go," said Daddy as he stooped inside the train tent and lifted her off the floor. Mila rested her head on his chest and did not struggle. 5 more minutes, Beto. Make them count." Alberto yawned again. "No bed, Mommy." The train conductor stooped beside Alberto and ran her fingers gently through his hair. 5 more minutes, love." He felt his eyelids weighing down heavily over his eyes. He hadn't realized how tired he was. Fighting giant octopi was a tiring business. He rubbed his eyes and the train conductor gently scooped him up into her arms. "We're almost at Siesta Village," she said sweetly. "Train conductor, Mommy," he whispered. "Yes, baby?" "I love you, train conductor, Mommy." Alberto felt himself being lifted up from his spot in the living room where his mother had set up the tent that was shaped like a train. He fit securely and comfortably in her arms, even though his legs dangled around her waist. His breaths came soft, and even as he was whisked away upstairs, his mother brushed her lips upon his forehead, leaving another pink mark. "Welcome to Siesta Village, my love." "That was really cute. That was really nice." That marks the end of Storytime. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Rest easy now, and I'll see you soon. Bye!